Hey, Thundercats and SilverHawks fans, I'm so honored to be joined tonight by a very special guest. He is from Dynamite Comics and he is, of course, responsible for the upcoming one-shot Apex. And then, of course, he is also involved with the SilverHawks comic book series that we're going to touch on very shortly. So I'm just so pleased to welcome Ed Brisson here. Hi there and welcome. It's wonderful to finally be catching up with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Tell me, Ed, who are you? How do you fit into this world? And what is your history with comic books?
Sure. My name is Ed Brisson. I'm a comic book writer. I've been working in comics for decade and a half now, I think. So a little while. I've worked for most of the big publishers. I've written for Marvel. Was exclusive there for several years at DC. Now with Dynamite, Boom, etc. And I'm going to apologize right now if I keep bouncing up and down. It's because my chair, the gasket's broken, so it keeps going down. Anyway, yeah, I've been writing comics for, like I said, about a decade and a half. And I grew up wanting to be a comic book artist and spent years writing and drawing and everything, and eventually uh, focused just on the writing, which is kind of where I got into. Actually, I got into comic books through lettering first, but I was writing um, and was able to transition from lettering over to writing.
Okay, that's
I can't
actually
remember the second part of
interesting.
your question.
That yeah, you already answered. Sort of, I wanted to just
Oh
find
yeah,
out.
perfect.
You're a writer as well and an artist, but you now mostly focusing on the writing, especially when it comes to this new Dynamite stuff. Correct?
Yeah. I haven't drawn comics for 14 years now. I haven't drawn anything. Even then, it was just independently published stuff. It wasn't anything for any of the larger companies.
Okay. How did you get involved with the Thundercats comics with Dynamite?
So I got involved mostly. So I know Declan, who's writing the main series. I've known him for about a decade. So when he first told me he was writing ThunderCats, I was kind of pestering him about SilverHawks, about when they would do a SilverHawks book because I'm a big SilverHawks fan. And so I don't know if it's because I was bugging him all the time, but uh, uh, sometime during the summer, Nate, who's the editor on all the ThunderCats stuff, reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in writing this ThunderCats Apex one shot that's coming out, which I was obviously very interested in doing. He pitched me the idea behind the story and sort of what Declan and Drew had in mind for the character. But it was still the thing that was appealing to me is they had a lot of stuff that was firmed up that they knew that they were doing, but it was still open enough that I could come in and still have some flexibility. It wasn't like I was coming in and just realizing someone else's vision. So that was basically how I first got attached to the. This chair is driving me crazy. How I first got attached to the book and to Thundercats.
Okay, because this new character Apex, he's a brand new character. We've never heard of him. It doesn't exist in the Thundercats universe until now. So it's quite exciting to
Uh-huh.
actually get this character, and we've seen bits and pieces of him so far. But you've now been tasked to give him this backstory. You know where he ends up with, or what his goal is. I'm assuming with what Declan's story is going to end up with. But now, like you said, you've got basically free reign to almost give him a backstory that you can add
Well,
in. So is that something that you took as an opportunity to just run with it? Because I mean, it can be crazy to just create something that is unknown, but also brand new, and the anticipation from Thundercats fans can be massive. I mean, I'm so excited just to know what on earth is this new character about.
yeah, I think like I said, they had quite a bit established already. So there was just like, they were still in the process of figuring out, like, sort of planning out the year, because Apex is a character that's going to play pretty heavily into the next year of Thundercats. And so they were still in the process of like mapping that out, mapping out the next year. and what specifically was going to happen. So, I got to be involved in those conversations and hopefully, have some input. But when we see him, he first appears in ThunderCats #8, and he's clearly this sort of man on a mission. He clearly has some sort of history with the ThunderCats, and he's after something in particular that they have. And at the end of it, it's all still really a mystery. There's not really a lot of answers, which is great. Like they kind of seeded that mystery really well. So for us, we get to dive into who he is, what he's after, what his history is with the ThunderCats, and why he's doing the things that he's doing. He's a very driven character, very brutal character. We get to see that side of him in this Apex one shot, and yeah. So, and we finally I don't want to spoil much, and I don't think I am, but we do get to see what's under the hood, which is one of the fun parts, because we were still working on the design, and I had this sort of 11th hour idea for what it could look like, and I did a very terrible sort of Photoshop mock-up of what I thought he would look like underneath the hood, and I sent it off to Nate and Declan, and they were into it, thankfully. And then Declan took it and he revised it a bit, and then Rafa, who's drawing the Apex one shot, put his own spin on it as well. So yeah, I'm very excited for people to get to that page where we get the reveal, and we see what he looks like and what he's all about and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, very excited.
There's actually been a tease that now this is how I'm interpreting it, because there was in this I have to be corrected here if it's in 8 or in 9, because I just read 9 today. But there is a bit where you can actually see that mask, or it looks like the mask that he's wearing, in that Chamber of Secrets, that special room where all the relics and all of that stuff is. But then you've now confirmed we will get to see what is underneath the mask. But Drew Moss shared something in the last 24 or 48 hours of Mamara and Lion-O, and Lion-O is basically getting wrapped up in the wrappings, which we assume is Mamara's. So it had me thinking that the position of the wrappings on there, is this Lion-O from the future that's time traveled through one of those portals in that chamber? I just don't know if it is a tease or throwing us scent off. It's rather interesting. Is it Lion-O, or obviously this is spoiler territory, but can you confirm that it's not him?
I'm not going to confirm anything. I'm just going to say that people will have to read it and find out, because I think saying yes or no is going to point people in different directions, and so I'm not going to be the one who's responsible for spoiling anything.
Well, it's just a couple of weeks until we get this one shot out. I'm really excited to see it. Can you tell me how long before the current timeline does your spin-off take place?
My spin-off actually takes place a little bit, roughly about a year or so. So it starts before. So we start earlier in Apex's mission, and so that's how we kind of get this sense of what he's after and what he's doing. So yeah, we go a bit before he actually meets up with the ThunderCats.
Okay, now his name is rather unique. I mean, you get Apex has quite different interpretations, but in terms of the felines, he can be an Apex predator. Has his name itself given you some kind of guideline as to his personality traits in your spin-off itself? Because that really sounds like quite the person you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to mess with him, and a little bit. I think that I'm more informed by the sort of discussion that I'd had with Declan and with Nate about who this person is, where they are at their life, and what they've been through, and that more informs who he is than maybe his name does.
Okay, so now we just touched on SilverHawks earlier. You obviously are a big fan of SilverHawks as well, and as you might or might not know, my viewers know I'm a big Super 7 Thundercats and SilverHawks fan. I'm a collector of their action figure lines, which is just fantastic. So the moment that Thundercats was announced as a confirmed product that they are going to sell, the next question everybody was, okay, when is SilverHawks coming up? So I mean that
Uh-huh.
universe, that Thunderverse is definitely there. It's been established in the 80s. So I'm just going to throw it out there, but there's a third property in this
Tiger
Thunderverse as
Sharks.
well. Yes.
Yeah.
Is that something that is in the works, or can we start mentioning it now already? Now we know SilverHawks is coming. Is there somebody we need to talk to get some Tiger Sharks in here as
You
well?
can talk to Dynamite. I don't know that they have any Tiger Sharks plans at the moment. They haven't shared them with me if they do. But definitely it is something that I've been asked personally, a couple dozen times already since the announcement of Silverhawks. So nothing right now, but hopefully if all these Thundercat and Silverhawks books continue as well as they have been, maybe we'll get to see Tiger Sharks.
Okay, so now, obviously these two universes are tied together because there was a tease in chapter 8 on the main line where you could see Quicksilver's mask in that chamber of the relics and secrets and whatever it is called. Is that actually Quicksilver's mask that is there? Because it does appear that space lives in a different time or is not limited by time. Does your story tie in with that mask that is seen there?
So right now, the timeline wise, Silverhawks and Thundercats are in very different timelines. The Silverhawks takes place in the 2885. I'm gonna mess it up.
Yeah.
Late 2800s anyway. So they are in different times. There's obviously by having these two books together, there's been some discussion about, possible meaning down the road, but I think right now Dynamite just wants to ensure that these two books are set up as their own thing before we kind of venture into that territory. But I would absolutely love for there to be a crossover.
Team
I
up.
have a million and a half ideas as to how that crossover could happen. So uh, we'll see what happens. But for now, it's the two will be separate for the
Okay.
moment.
Okay. Now from the pictures that we've seen of the covers of chapter one, I'm assuming it's for chapter one, these covers. There seems to have been some kind of change up in the lineup of the Silverhawks because I've noticed that Hotwing is it looks like he's part of the core group now. He came on later in the series, but is he in the initial core group in your story?
He is going to be a part of the initial group in my story. Um, there's just when I was writing, so the way that we're approaching Silverhawks is we're actually going to start kind of before the cartoon, because in the cartoon week, that the first episode, everyone's thrown together really quick, and then we have the Silverhawks. Um, one of the things, I grew up, I loved that cartoon, but one of the things it doesn't do uh, very well is it doesn't really dive too deeply into who the people are and what their backstories are. Like we kind of just we're plunked into that and we have them, on the adventure of the day or adventure of the week or whatever it is. So we're kind of like starting a bit further back so that we can kind of slowly introduce each character. The full team isn't going to be together until the third issue, I believe. So they kind of are slowly put together. And when I was writing this story for Bluegrass, I had a Bluegrass story I was working on, and there was a very organic spot to bring Hot Wing in that made a lot of sense. So there's a Hot Wing and Bluegrass story uh, that just made a lot of sense for me. Hot Wing was a character I loved when I was younger as well. So there's part of me just wanting to get him on the team because he was one of my favorite characters. But it just felt natural to sort of uh, bring him in earlier on. So he will be there. Yes. To answer the
Okay.
question, a long way of answering the question, but yes, he's there quite early.
That's quite exciting. What I do love about what Dynamite especially has done with Thundercats is now the Chitara spin-off was basically like a prequel to Thundercats, and we got to see things before the cartoon. And you're taking the same approach with SilverHawks, where we get to go back in time a little bit, which is wonderful because that world we don't know anything about it, but the world does exist, and for you to just delve in there, how did it make you feel to be able to tell stories that we've always wondered about what happened before? You've got a big responsibility here to share something that you think would lead into whatever we are familiar with.
Yeah, for me, that's it, sort of exciting stuff for me to get in there and work around on that. Like, there is like a bit of an implied history um, with Stargazer and Condor, like later on in the series, that we're kind of like diving into a little bit. That there was sort of a Silverhawks-like program before the Silverhawks, which is something we're going to touch on. There's some stuff that we're going to do involving Monstar and Stargazer from back in the day, because Stargazer was the one who initially put Monstar in prison, and I want to see what that looks like, what happened there during that sort of first encounter. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff that we're going to delve back into, while also that we're constantly moving forward, but having those moments of that have been implied and really kind of filling out the history a bit in a way I think that feels organic to what Silverhawks was. It feels like it fits. It's just things that were kind of hinted at that were never really fully explored in the cartoon that we get to do. Like in the cartoon, you don't really ever even see, like, they're just always in space. So you don't see Bedlama ever, right? You don't really see the planet that often. So we're going to spend a lot of time there and sort of explore what that world is like, as well as being up in space and battling baddies and all that sort of stuff.
That's so exciting. Please tell me, I'm a Flashback fan. Will he make an appearance somewhere? I just love the green. It's just awesome. Will he be there?
Yeah, I think Flashback is awesome. He's someone that I have plans for. So hopefully the series does well enough that we get to go on for a little while. But I definitely have plans. I just didn't want to bring him in early because he feels like someone who should come later. And there's a lot of interesting stuff around Flashback. I think that he almost needs his own storyline for when he comes in, rather than just bring him in immediately. So we're trying to push that off. Hopefully, depending on how long we get to go, but it would be, if Flashback comes in, it probably wouldn't be until the close to the end of the first year.
Okay. So you've got your first year planned out, 12, 10 issues already for your
So
first
I've
arc of the story?
pitched I planned at 12 issues, but it's the comics industry, so who knows what'll happen, like hopefully we get to go 12 and beyond. The Thundercat stuff seems to be doing quite well. But I've been in the industry long enough to know, like, not to get too excited about the longevity of anything.
Have you created any new characters in your Silverhawk story, like they have created Apex and Calico on the Thundercat side?
So we do have in the first issue 3 or 4 new characters that are part of Condor and Stargazer's like old crew. So we're gonna flesh that crew out a little bit more. So there's new characters there. For the time being, though, there's no new Silverhawks in this first arc. Beyond that, just these original characters, and there's just so many really cool like antagonists to play around with. That I want to make my way through them first before I start bringing in some fresh blood. But there are definitely some thoughts for some possibilities, but we're gonna wait a little bit.
Are you writing this series with the idea of possible spin-offs as well, or one-shots like that's happened with Thundercats now?
Uh, not not right now, not at present, because I tend to just focus on the thing that's in front of me, and I want to make sure that that lands and that hits and it's as good as it can be before we start like kind of spinning things out of it. I want to focus just on the core thing. I don't want to um, start just adding a lot of stuff that would have to spin out before we really establish ourselves. I'd like to get established first, and then we can kind of look at those sort of things.
Okay. Now you've mentioned that obviously SilverHawks, as in the cartoon, it takes place a lot later in the timeline versus what ThunderCats is. There were similarities or mentions in the SilverHawks cartoon in terms of the penal planet systems where the jails were. So that was in ThunderCats with Mandora. She was also taking prisoners to certain
Yes.
planets. Is that something that is established on your side as well? Like to sort of, we know it's in the same universe, but is it confirmed that there's definitely they are aware of Thundercats from the past, or is that just something that we might see in
Uh,
the background
there's
somewhere?
not there's not really any sort of mention of Thundercats at this point in Silverhawks, because again, it's just we're trying to just establish it as its own thing before we start
Mhm.
doing any of that. But yeah, there's the other. I'm trying to remember the name of the Penal Planet in Thundercats because it's yeah very similar to Penal Planet 10.
Yes,
Um,
it's the grape prison planet, I think, on in
is that what it's
Thundercats.
called? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so there's definitely those sort of similarities, which it feels like it's just right there in terms of having like one thing is an evolution of the other. But again, I just we don't like we want to just kind of get our feet flat on the ground, really sort of dig ourselves in before we start doing that sort of stuff.
Was there any massive changes that you had to make or that you felt necessary to bring in with any of the characters that you felt was a missed opportunity in the cartoon that we could actually relate to today a bit better than what we would have as kids when we watched it?
I think, really Quicksilver, we're diving into a bit more about his sort of like his past as sort of a leader. He was in our book, he was similar to Stargazer. He leads the SWAT team. So we're kind of getting into his history of like leading teams and what it means to him to lead a team. And I think, Silverhawks was a lot of like fun a lot of time, but you didn't really get this kind of burden that was on Quicksilver for having to lead a team and having people's um, lives under his command. Um, there's like minor changes that we're doing here and there, but nothing I think too huge. Like I think that the characters as they were, I really enjoy them. The Copper Kid is a little bit he's maybe a little bit brattier in ours, a little bit more angsty teenager than what he was maybe in the cartoon. He's not as sort of like bright-eyed and stuff. He's still got a bit of that, but we've given him a bit more, making it a bit more like a teenager for sure. But the rest,
And
no,
the,
like I think we kept them pretty close to what they were. Like they're more real world versions of it. Like we show Bluegrass as a musician before he becomes, a thing
okay.
because he was a pilot, becomes a musician. So we get to kind of see his like kicking around, playing honky tonks and playing in rough bars and all that sort of stuff. Um,
Okay.
so that,
And
that sort of stuff is fun. I think that's already kind of there in the character, but some stuff we're just like expanding upon and really showing.
so music, I mean, there's Melodia as well in there. She also
Yeah.
strums her guitar. Was she like a pop star that turned evil and then had like slime thrown on her and became a baddie? Or is that something that you would give backstories for the villains as well?
Yes, Melodia and Bluegrass are both in the second issue, and it's both about their past. So and they do intertwine. So I don't want to say anything more than that. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, definitely there. We've got molecular, we've got hardware, we've got Windjammer. Um, and I am blanking on Buzz.
Buzzsaw. It is
Yes,
Buzzsaw.
Buzzsaw. I
Yes,
I keep
yes.
wanting to call him Buzzkill. Buzzsaw is in there. So we've got all the poker face as well. Um, so a lot of those we will have their sort of little bits of their backstory, or at least how they fit into the larger story. But Melodia definitely has a nice few moments in the second issue where we kind of get to see where she comes from and how she ends up where she is.
Fantastic. So now I can see how passionate you are about SilverHawks. How was writing SilverHawks different versus writing the Apex story for you? Is it because you know you're writing SilverHawks on a bigger scope versus what you had done with the Apex story?
Yeah, I think with Apex, the thing is I had to do this one issue that is like a self-contained story, but also sets them up for, someone else to write. Like I'm not going to be writing Apex's adventures beyond this issue. So for me, I'm writing the story. I'm setting the stage. I'm kind of, uh, like I'm packing his lunch and sending him on his way afterwards, right? Like I don't get to spend the time to develop him beyond that. And I knew that was the thing going in. Whereas Silverhawks, I had this opportunity to kind of nurture these characters and to really build and spend time with the characters. And at present, I'm the only one who's really, you know, um, me and George, who's drawing the series, we're the like the stewards of these characters. So we get to control where they go and how their stories shape up and how they end in some cases.
Okay, that's exciting. So, um, with this series that's coming out now, where are you in terms of writing right as of this very moment? Which chapter are you busy with now? It's the day before
As
Halloween, so people need to know when they watch this. Where are you now?
so I am fully outlined for 12 issues. So that which means I have my roadmap. And right now I'm on the second issue. So, it's still fairly early. George is drawing the first issue. I'm on the second issue right now.
Okay.
But this is like I'm on this book and the other, so I'm going through about like a script and a half a month. So fair enough, far enough ahead. But like again, we have the roadmap all planned out, and that's kind of the big thing for nailing down where we're going.
Are you surprised by the reaction from the public about Silverhawks?
Yeah, I really was honestly because I'm a huge Silverhawks fan, and it felt like I was the one bugging Dynamite to do it, to do the book, and when it came out, when the announcement came out, I was kind of shocked at the reaction, um, and the amount of like comments and feedback and emails and stuff I've got. I think I probably haven't gotten that much um, like excitement and response since like I wrote X-Men a few years ago. Like so it was kind of like surprising how many people it felt like we're sitting and kind of waiting for a book like this, which I was very excited about.
Well, I have to say congratulations. This is really fantastic news. I myself am so excited to see what you're coming up with, and hearing all these teasers of characters that we know and love is really it gives hope that the series is just going to be superb. I'm sure that everybody is excited to get their hands on the first copy, and that is coming out. Is that in January next year when the first chapter is
And end
launched?
of January, I believe. Yeah, end of January, I believe. I apologize because I'm really terrible for knowing dates from when books I'm working on come out, but it is in January for sure.
Okay. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to leave us with, or any teasers that you want to let us cling on to until we get to Apex and the Silverhawk series?
I'm always worried about giving spoilers or teasers because I don't want to spoil too much, and I feel like I've given a lot away already. But I think just hopefully tune in. Hopefully you dig it. Like I'm very excited to be writing this book, and I'm hoping that that excitement will be contagious, and that people reading the book will be able to feel that and enjoy it in the same way that I am enjoying writing it.
Well, I can tell you it's definitely infectious. I mean, it's reached the African continent already where I'm sitting on. So it's so exciting to finally see this get its place in the limelight. And congratulations on this wonderful achievement. I mean, it's not been out yet, but it is really going to rock everybody's world because it is already doing so. And it's
Let's hope.
great anticipation for this. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And I look forward to talking to you again as soon as the first issue is out to catch up
Perfect.
on the new SilverHawks and then also look back at Apex as well. Thank you so much, Ed.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for having me.